guys, Brian Hathaway here, Bocos del Toro, SV Holdfast, sitting here in Panama. Day, I don't know, a couple thousand this trip. I left LA February 22, sailed around the world. I'm almost done. The only thing I have to do is pop to the canal here, motor back up to Los Angeles. I have zero ambition of bashing my boat or my body for 2 months to get back to LA at the moment. So kind of hang out in Panama for about 6 months, kind of kick around, see what's what here, and spend a little bit of time not waiting for the next weather window, the next check-in, the next repair, and just enjoy the boat for a while. I've just been so laser focused for so long for getting around the world. It's been about 4 years, about 40,000 miles. I left LA in February of 22. Now it's, December of 2025. It has been an epic journey on every single possible level. It's unexplainable what I've learned and how I've grown just as a human. But look, this is my first podcast in this series. I want to talk about sailing the world. I'm going to talk about the mental aspect, the physical aspect, the technical aspects, and sort of what it took for me to do this. But I really wanted to start the podcast with something that's very important I think a lot of people don't talk about, and that is the mental aspect. You can spend $1 million and go buy a boat and buy every tool and every redundancy and every piece of safety on the planet, and that's great. And you certainly should do that. You certainly should have some sort of understanding of mechanics, of electrical, of plumbing, of sailing, of navigation. These are really important things to do. There's a lot of people out there, and people are going to probably argue with me on this, that just buy a boat and leave. Here's the problem with that. That's fine for you, but we exist in the same place. We exist in the same anchorages, in the same marinas. When you find yourself in a problem, in a horrible storm in the middle of nowhere, there's no Coast Guard in 90% of the places you're going to go. I'm the person that's going to answer on 16 or on the SSB or on a phone call or a WhatsApp chat that's going to come 100 miles out into the middle of nowhere to put myself in danger to come find you. Like any other cruiser would, that's what we do. Our support anywhere in the world, all the things I've learned, all the help I've got, cannot even be explained how I could not have done this without the people around me that helped me along the way. But if you simply just buy a boat and bail, look, we're going to pass each other. You need to know which way to go. You need to know how to learn how to read AIS, how to plot a course, how to set sails. A squall comes up, it'll go from 15 knots to 50 knots. How do you mechanically and mentally get yourself through that problem? These are huge things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do this. Everybody should do this. I think it's an amazing life. And I had done some racing for a couple years. I certainly had done nothing of this magnitude. I built nightclubs for a long time. So I'm a fairly technical person. So a lot of things come naturally. But, you learn so much along the way. You certainly do not need to know everything. But there is like a core base of knowledge that'll benefit you and keep me safe at the same time, if that makes sense. I've had enough people dump on me at anchor at 2 o'clock in the morning when they slipped because they know how to anchor, or their anchor is too small, or they don't have enough chain, or, for whatever reason, they've interacted with me in a negative way that's affected my boat or my safety, is, 90% of the time based on the fact that someone did something that was not right, if that makes sense. And I'm not speaking disparagingly. Everybody learns. I didn't know it's a 16th of what I do now, and that's probably overshooting it. You learn a ton along the way, but certainly it would benefit you and make your life exponentially easier and cheaper. If you know how to change a belt, there's $100. You don't have to pay someone to change a belt. If you know how to do a oil change, there's $200. You don't have to pay someone to do it in a marina. If your fuel filters get clogged at sea, you have to do that. If you have to replace your alternator at sea, you have to fix your solar at sea. If your Neiman network goes down, you have to diagnose that. So you're not trying to use a sextant. Not that would be a thing, but understanding these things is a very large aspect of doing this. So, and again, I'm not disparaging anybody. I'm not saying anyone should do whatever they want. It's just sort of understanding that your safety is my safety, because I'm the one that's going to come help you. I'm the one that's going to set off and go 50 miles into that storm to come save you when your boat's sinking, because that's what we do, if all that makes sense. So, but again, on the mental aspect, I think it's important to understand there's really nothing else in life to compare this to. It's an all-in mentality, especially if you do it the way that I'm doing it and the way that a lot of other folks have done it, is, get rid of the house, get rid of the car. For a lot of people that don't have $1 million, that's the only way this is financially viable, to have, to be able to afford a good enough boat, to have a big enough kitty to be able to get yourself through forever long you're anticipating leaving. you have to really kind of do a fire sale, right? And leave it all behind. You're leaving your whoopee behind. Your virtual whoopee, your life, your safety, your comfort. You're leaving all that behind. The biggest thing is to understand how to learn how to live in a place of discomfort. Because once you leave, you can't just run home to mom. I mean, you can, but now you got a boat. Now you have this thing you spent a lot of money on. You have no job anymore. You have no house. You have no car. You need to understand how difficult this is. And I think that a lot of people, that they think about the technical aspect, but they don't put a lot of thought into that part of it. And it's on every level. Going through a squall, I think, is a great sort of analogy, or a great example of sort of the mental fortitude that's required. Going through squalls in the South Pacific, or just anywhere around the equator, it'll go from 15 knots to 50 knots. It's violent. There's no other word. It's violent. The sounds the boat makes, the sounds the rig makes, when it comes over you, the way it pushes the stern, the whipping of the waves around you, the lack of control you feel, even though you've reefed down, even though you maybe have a drogue out, or warp line out, or sea anchor out, maybe your hydrovane's running it, maybe your autopilot's running it, maybe you're manning the helm, whatever that is, you're in that storm. There's just the anticipation of it coming. You see it in the radar. Maybe you don't have radar. Maybe you see Mordor on the horizon, that ominous black cloud. It's coming down on you. There's nothing to do about it. It's going to be there. For the first couple times, you get in a space to where you're like, well, what is this going to be? Can I contend with this? And it's a natural place, because it's really difficult. And it's super scary if it's the first couple times. And I mean, really down the line, 50 knots is not fun now. Even though I've been through it a bunch, it's still not fun. The boat's not meant to do that. People think you just throw a drogue out or warp line out and sea anchor out and you're safe. No. The boat does not want to do, physics does not want to allow what you're telling the boat to do now. You're stopping it in a way that it wants to move on its own. It doesn't just, it's not a soft break. Now you have waves come over the stern, or waves come over the bow. The waves are doing odd things to the boat because it's not allowing it to do what it wants to do. So it's important to understand that it's not as easy as simply deploying something mechanical to get through these things. So, but I think the anticipation going into it is one thing, and be able to survive mentally through that, even thrive in that mental space. Then once the storm comes on you, if the jib comes unfurled in 50 knot winds, you have to be able to get up, get out, walk forward, cut it loose, get it in, tie it down, wrap it around, whatever it is. You have to be able to man up, forgive the word man, but you have to be able to go forward in that and make that happen. Otherwise, the rig comes down. Maybe your spinnaker's out. You shrimp the boat. Maybe your main comes out. Maybe it does a bad jibe on you. You need to be able to prepare for all these things mentally and be able to go attack this and be able to take care of it on your own. And then there's, once you get through it, the elation, the sense of the feeling of satisfaction that you faced something that was so dangerous, that you felt was so insurmountable, that now you've made it through and you're like, oh my God, I did it. I can do this. I can make it through this. I think it's sort of like a microcosm of the whole thing, is getting through that one little storm, sort of mentally and physically, if that makes sense. When I first left in 2022 in Mexico, by the time I got to probably Fiji or the Marshall Islands, which is probably about a year or 9 or 10 months in, I did Polynesia, American Samoa, Samoa, Fiji. Instead of going to Australia, I went north to Kiribati, Marshall Islands, and over to Palau through Micronesia. But by the time I got to the Marshall Islands, I was very homesick. I was alone most of the time. My sail single landed about 90% of the time. And you don't have your whoopee. And not only that, things break constantly, repetitively, all the time. And you're not only are they broken, but you're living in that broken thing that's all around you. You can't just sit in the salon. You're surrounded by sort of this demoralizing feeling that these things are broken, and there's nothing to be done about it. And you get to a place like Timodos or Fiji that are unbelievably beautiful and lifetime experiences. You're like, this is why I'm here. Oh my God, the food, the people, the places, the beauty. It's epic on every level. But then when you get to a place like, I was in the Marshall Islands, I was there for a month, and everything was broken, and you're alone, and you have none of your comfort. And it's just, at that point, I had no Starlink till Indonesia. So I went a year and a half without Starlink. So I couldn't just FaceTime someone. I couldn't YouTube a fix-it video. All I had was Nigel Calder's book. And the knowledge that I learned on the way, and the help of fellow cruisers, So you get to a place where you're just handing out money repetitively to fix things in a place that's not particularly beautiful, and you start to question, why am I doing this? And I get very, very homesick. Here's the thing. I'm like 7,000 miles from home. It's a beat back. It's a miserable slog to get back to LA. Maybe you go to Hawaii, maybe you do Guam, Saipan, Japan, Alaska back down. Either way, it's still months at sea. You can't just give up. You can't just throw in the towel. I mean, you can, but at a magnificent and enormous financial loss, because you're not selling your boat in Thailand or in Tahiti where you bought it for in the States or in Europe, and that's just the pure thing of it. So obviously I got myself through it, but just understanding, I think what I achieve most in this life, besides the obvious beauty and new cultures, and I'm a traveler, not a tourist. I think it's important to understand that as well, that like a tourist will go to an island for a week, run rampant, get drunk, be an idiot, make their country look stupid, kind of just be themselves, but drunk selves. A traveler is someone that you want to go places that are far away. You want to absorb culture, meet people, different languages. It's a challenge to order a sandwich. That's okay. It's a lot of places don't take credit. You got to have cash everywhere. ATMs are 10 miles away. Getting fuel is a massive hike. There's just so many things that are challenging, but you thrive in that adversity. Your perseverance is the reward on top of the epic beauty that you're surrounded by. But I just think it's important people understand that it is incredibly difficult. Like folks try to compare it to van life and to RV life. And look, on a smaller level, sure, my water pump is the same one that's in an RV or in a van. You can stop it at Exxon. You can stop it at Target. There's people that will drive by you wherever you go. If you're in Carabas, there's no one within 100 miles of you. You need to be completely self-sufficient to be able to, like, if the alternator goes out, if your fuel filters get filled up, and you got to clean out the rake core, if you have to do an oil change, things like that. And then deeper in, if I have to descale my heat exchanger, if I have to fix my water heater, further along down the line, specifically, I think now it's Starlink, a lot of those things are getting easier because you can just look up YouTube videos, opposed to, before it was a little more difficult. You sort of kind of like, oh, I think I can. You just sort of dive into it sort of stuff. But like, you still need to be able to not be afraid to like open the toolbox and dive into something head first and not be afraid you're going to break it further and attempt to at least fix it or at least understand what the problem is so you can call another cruiser on the radio and say, hey, these are the symptoms. This X, Y, and Z in part are broken. Do you have any idea? Could you please come help me if there's someone around? But yeah, I wanted to make this first video. I'm 25 years into recovery, alcoholic and an addict. I found this life. It has saved my existence. The healing power of the ocean, the humbling, just being 1,000 miles offshore on my own, understanding where I sort of fit in all of this. It was life altering in every possible way. I think that everyone in their life should take on something that's this challenging based on the rewards that come back to you. But I think it's really important, again, I'm going to say it 100 times, to sort of understand the mental fortitude that it takes. You cannot hide. The problems will find you. The storms will find you. The difficulty will find you. You cannot hide from them. You're in the middle of the ocean. Now, look, if you're going to cruise in the Bahamas, you're going to take the boat 50 miles here, 50 miles there, island to island. Obviously, that's a much different thing. But if your intention is to cross oceans and go on the Mozambique Channel and do the Indian Ocean and go to places that are notoriously bad, you really need to have an understanding of like what you're going to face on a mechanical level, on a physical level, on an emotional level, and you have to be all in on every level. There's no, if you half-ass it, you'll get that in return. Things will happen, and that's sort of the idea of it. But again, it's a blessed life. I would have no other life. I'm going to talk about NEMA networks, dinghies and dinghy motors and autopilots and hydrovanes and tactics and warp lines and sailing and all that stuff down the line. But I really wanted to just impress would be maybe the word onto people, understanding the mental fortitude and the rewards that come out of it, but knowing how difficult this is just, there's no way to verbalize it, although I've been trying for probably 18 minutes now. But I can't recommend it more. Again, like, this is the freedom, the beauty, the people, the places, the food, the experiences, they're like no other. There just simply is no other existence. But there's a trade-off, and you got to be good with one to have the other. And arguably, the one is what makes the other exponentially better. Understanding what it took for me to get from A to B makes B so much better. And not to be cliche, but it is all about the journey, not the destination. So that's all I got, guys. Brian Hathaway here, SV Holdfast. I got tons more podcasts coming. They're all going to be very technical, very deep. But I thought this would be a great place to start. So fair winds, my friends.